Hey everybody, it's Fraser here and welcome to my review of the brand new movie Marty Supreme. Now, as a table tennis commentator, you can just imagine how excited I was to hear that a movie like this was in production. I was actually asked to audition for a role in this movie myself. Didn't get it, unfortunately. I was a bit heartbroken, but I was just absolutely delighted for one of my good friends from university who landed the role. And to watch it last night was just surreal in so many ways, and I hope that it can do table tennis just a world of good. Anyway, let's get into the review. So first and foremost, I want to talk about the acting in the movie. Now, I thought the acting was top-notch, very strong, legendary, I'm not so sure, Oscar-worthy, I'm not so sure, although we know that these award shows are a little bit of a circus sometimes with the selections that we see. But I think that Marty Supreme was played very, very well by the starring man, Timothée Chalamet. I think that, you really got a sense of his ambition, his drive, his insecurity, his unfulfillment while chasing a dream which he felt like no one believed in other than himself. That really came across well. Kevin O'Leary, I think, played the rich businessman to a T. He's kind of playing himself in a sense, but I thought that there was a grounded nature to his acting which was really convincing and really made the movie, and it was a nice contrast with Marty's character. Tyler, the Creator, making his, I'd say, landmark acting debut. I think that there was a charisma to him. I think that he's got, if he wants, a very bright future in acting alongside his music career. I think he stood out the most for me. But there was also some, cameo kind of appearances with the Golden Voice guy. That was a really pleasant surprise to see him working in the ping pong club. Brought a smile to my face, but overall, acting, I've got to give it sort of 8, 9 out of 10. Next up, I want to talk about the filmmaking and the cinematography. A24 is known for making really absorbing, engrossing movies with fantastic lighting, and I think that the cinematography was the best part of this movie. I think that the props that they use, the attention to detail, the lighting, the way in which they portrayed what table tennis used to be like in the 50s with the outfits, with the courts, the audiences, everything was top-notch. I was absolutely amazed at how that was portrayed, and obviously a lot of work, research had gone into that. So yeah, that was my favorite part of the movie. The houses, the apartments felt lived in, the way the streets were done, amazing, the cars. I was blown away by that particular department of the film. The next thing that I want to talk about is Marty's background, and this ties in with a later topic, the storytelling of the movie. But I feel like the movie really didn't touch upon Marty's life and background very realistically. There was a lot of fictionalized drama that I feel like was put in the film quite unnecessarily and quite impulsively to try and make the film more dramatic. But for me, Marty's life in reality was more interesting than what the film showed it to be. And I felt like that made some of the drama feel unnecessary, feel cheap, feel unimaginative, and we didn't really get to see his struggles, his parents' struggles, where he really came from. The movie started when Marty was 23 years of age. I understand that this movie isn't necessarily a sports film or a biopic, but for me, you can't just take a real person and put a spin on them that's so far-fetched. Yes, we saw his struggles. Yes, we saw his desire, but we never got to see where that desire really came from. There was only one scene where you got to see him hustling. You didn't really get to see how his style as a table tennis player was formed. You didn't really get to see his brilliance with his mind games, how he managed to con people, how he managed to outthink them, outsmarten them. And for me, that is instrumental in a movie like this, which is portraying a person who is an original, who is a maverick, who is a pioneer, someone who is able to entertain and dominate a sport. You know, Marty in reality won over 20 major international titles. He was one of the most dominant players in the world. So I couldn't understand why the entire movie he was made to be a bit of an underdog. In his own mind, yeah, he felt very misunderstood and like no one believed in his vision other than him. But he was one of the biggest and best known table tennis players in the world. And you just didn't really get to see his dominance over the years in the movie. And that for me confused me, because this at the end of the day felt like a coming of age story. That's what it was marketed to be, an inspiring American dream style story. But the way he was portrayed was like he was this massively troubled, divisively malicious guy. So I felt like confused about the way that, you know, he was portrayed in some senses. Now for me, my biggest frustration about the film, and maybe I'm a little bit biased being you know, a massive table tennis fan, but the table tennis side of it for me was atrocious. And that came as a massive surprise to me because, you know, I know that Timothée Chalamet put a lot of work into playing and training table tennis, and I know that he was even getting guided by you know, a few members of the cast who were actual table tennis players, not actors, but they were drafted in to act in the movie. And the movie really didn't tap into that. You know, I felt as though, you know, the way that the rallies were shown was very corny, unrealistic, and gimmicky. You know, it reminded me of that fake video of Bruce Lee playing table tennis with his nunchucks. The ball would speed up and then slow down before it'd, you know, and it just, that for me was a little bit of a disappointment, because I know that they, you know, sucked the counsel of some world-class players, and they got, you know, actual players to come in, like my friend who got the role that I missed out on, and they never showed it. And that amazed me, that they'd rather CGI it in than choreograph something, which, believe me, they could have done. Like the rallies where Marty was far back lobbing and whatnot. They could have done a better job with that. They 100% could have done a better job with that. But yeah, they didn't. And, you know, for me, I really wanted to believe like this movie could really boost the popularity of table tennis and potentially, you know, cure a bit of a stigma that the West has about table tennis not being a sport. So many people to this day don't even think table tennis is a sport. And I don't think that the movie really challenged that idea. Now, if that was to reflect how Marty felt like no one believed in his vision, that's a very, very intelligent move from the writers and the directors. But it does feel like they played it a little bit safe. You know, they didn't really talk about any of the other major players surrounding him at the time, any of his big challengers, any of the people that he really hustled, you know. And so much of the drama in the movie was about, you know, a lost dog that he tried to profit from, or his romance with an actress. None of those things actually happened. That's completely fiction. And for me, if they're going to create fiction around this character, they've got to do it surrounding his hustle, like enemies that he could have made, money that he might have owed, or maybe trying to get somebody who didn't pay him back. You know, for me, his life in reality was interesting enough that they didn't need to have the bathtub scene, the dog scene, the shootout scene, the car driving into the porch scene. That for me felt cheap, unimaginative, and overly dramatic. You know, the film was so much about struggle, and I appreciate that. You know, seeing a character make it through struggle and get somewhat of some closure, that you know, makes you love that character and respect that character in a sense. But you know, you were left feeling conflicted because of his you know, scummy actions throughout the movie, and his audacious. It was more than belief. It was a bit of arrogance, and I know that you need that if you're going to have the athlete mentality. And I know that Timothée Chalamet incorporated so much of that in his marketing run leading up to the film, and I respect that so much, and I love that. But it just didn't hit the same in the movie itself. And I think that because we barely saw his rise, you didn't really feel the journey. It was just chaotic drama all the time, and then he was all of a sudden into the tournament and in the semi-final or the final, like at the English Open, which was the only tournament that they showed other than the exhibition. You know, it just didn't feel enough that you felt like, yeah, empowered by this character. I feel like if the writers would have trusted that Marty's actual story was enough in itself, it would have landed harder because it would have felt more real. Seeing him go from this troubled kid whose parents split up, you know, from a poor background, to becoming a street hustler, to becoming a pro, and then, you know, winning so many titles, becoming one of the best in the world, and then maybe showing how, you know, he went out to Asia as well. And that would, for me, have felt far more inspiring than the chaotic drama that we saw throughout the movie from start to finish. You never felt like he achieved that much. You didn't feel like he lived up to what he thought he was going to achieve. But in reality, he did. So why didn't the film show that? And again, I understand that this movie isn't really a sports film. It's almost like a psychological drama that has the table tennis in the background. But why choose a character like this to make a movie about? Why choose this guy who had such an incredible life, really amazing story, and turn it into what it was turned into? I can't understand what the intention was, and I can't understand what went wrong. So I guess my biggest issue with the film is the tone and the identity. You know, it doesn't feel like a sports film. It doesn't fully commit to being a biopic either. It sits somewhere in between. It's like a stylized character study that takes a real person and shapes him too heavily. Why I think that the directors went in the direction that they did with this character is because ultimately they wanted to try their best to make him appeal to a modern audience. They wanted to make him accessible to a modern audience. You know, that's why they did it in a way which, you know, portrayed struggle over success, his flaws over his mastery, his conflicts over his competence levels. Because ultimately, struggle is easier to dramatize. And that's what made me think that they kind of played it safe and were a little bit unimaginative in the way that they went about their business with the storytelling in the movie. So overall, I'm giving Marty Supreme a 6 out of 10. I can't shake the feeling that, you know, the storytelling was unimaginative. I was upset that they swayed away from the reality of Marty as an individual, as a maverick in table tennis. I think that the table tennis filming itself was a little bit cheesy and unrealistic, and they didn't fully capitalize on having the player actors who they you know, got on board for the movie. Thank you so much for watching this review. Highly recommend that you watch the film yourselves. And yeah, Till next time.